Now. Hello and welcome to our show this evening on Super Bowl Sunday. I'm your host, Tony Sixswing, here with Six Stream Productions, with my co-host, Laura Quinting.
Hello.
We're talking about Super Bowl commercials and apparently whether or not TikTok will surpass YouTube. I highly doubt it will, but whatever. I mean, it might surpass it for viral little quick stuff, but there's like, what, 3-4 days worth of video uploaded every minute?
I think that statement was more so me saying that with the new COPPA rules and stuff like that, people are straying from YouTube as their main source of income to now TikTok, where they can grow in virality a lot easier. Like in YouTube, there was a very small percentage of people that make it big, where I think on TikTok, your percentage of people who are, regular people, as we are, have been making it big and amassing their wealth on other platforms through TikTok rather than YouTube, which was the traditional way of making it big on social media.
Oh yeah, that is a interesting to think of, and like personally here, as I announced last week, here soon, uh, Taxmas is coming where we get our refunds. Some of us do, anyways. And I found out
Yes.
it's not going to cost that much, even on like let's say Squarespace, for me to for a year pay for this podcast to have a website with unlimited contributors and like some money for AdWords to actually put out some advertising to gain some traction and put everything up on SoundCloud Unlimited for a year. SoundCloud Unlimited for a year, I think it's like $96 or something like that.
That's
96,
not
120
bad.
bucks for the unlimited. And if I pay it annually, I mean, I'm think on the outside it's like $120. And for that, I have unlimited amount of stuff I can put up in there, upload every week, and that combined with the website, I can have an RSS feed which will allow me to put these podcasts on iTunes as well. So we'll have more of a way to gain a following there, and we can remind everyone in these podcasts to please come to YouTube and listen live. And one day we may end up on Blog Talk Radio, but that's actually exceedingly an expensive platform to be on because you have to pay for the account and whatnot. And there's a lot of limits. Even on the cheapest premium account, you only get like 100 hours worth of recordings being able to be left on the site, so they would still be backed up and whatnot. And it can be a pain, but it's highly monetizable there.
Right.
But we're not
I've
doing this for money.
actually seen so how TikTok and the Super Bowl correlates for our listeners, which because it's Super Bowl Sunday, we probably don't have any, but we usually don't.
Yeah,
Is
with at least listen to thing on the internet.
interesting fact is, and I had sent Tony over, assuming he watched some of the Super Bowl commercials I sent him.
I tried, and actually I'll go into that something about that later. I tried, but most of them were way too stupid.
One of the people that was in one of the commercials, which was, if you guys ever heard of, I think it's called Sabra or Sabre, I don't know, but it's basically a really, really large hummus company. And one of the people in there is a really, really large TikToker named Charlie D'Amelio. She has over 22 million followers on TikTok, is actually steady to become the most followed person on TikTok, who is Lauren Gray, but she hasn't really grown that much. So it's probably going to be Charlie. She was in the Super Bowl commercial, and she hasn't even had her account since, like, I want to say April or May, something like that. And then a very large Vine star was put on the Super Bowl commercial as well. So it just shows you how these social medias can really take you to celebrity status places depending on how popular you get.
And how good you are at marketing, which we've all figured I'm horrible at.
And if people don't know who Charlie D'Amelio is, she is only 15 years old and has managed to already be signed with a talent agency, and basically got famous on TikTok for making dance videos. So she kind of is the it person now, which is why this hummus company probably paid her off a decent amount of money to be in said commercial, because they, I would assume, are trying to market themselves to a more youthful audience for their hummus.
I don't even know what hummus is.
Hummus is basically chickpeas and a bunch of other ingredients mushed together to make a dip.
All I know is I believe that it is kosher.
But I think what's interesting about the Super Bowl, besides obviously everyone knows it's the 49ers versus the Chiefs, but me and Tony don't really care about football that much, but I myself do like watching some of the highlights as well as a decent amount of the commercials.
We all know everyone watches the Super Bowl for the commercials. Except
Yes.
on that thing of watching for the commercials, while I was doing a little bit of, actually, I'm kind of glad we didn't do what our plan was for this week, because
The trophy. We were
slated to
trophy.
to do something about trophy hunting this week, but due to the Super Bowl and other commitments, our guest that was going to be on here and suggested the topic, is not going to be available, and I didn't have any time this week to do any research into it or anything really.
I did research a little bit into trophy hunting, and it definitely is something that we are going to talk about, but there was just certain topics that took precedence this week.
Exactly. But as I was about to say, I decided, since I really couldn't stand most of the commercials, because I did actually go on Fox now and start watching the game to try to watch some of the commercials live, since they all haven't been all released yet. And one person released their top 20 funniest commercials. Now, I think the Tide commercial was stupid. I think all the Ellen DeGeneres commercials for Alexa, what did people do before Alexa, that's just making it look like they think everyone is so stupid they can't use the post office, which actually some people, it's kind of getting that bad. But it's kind of pushing this idea that you have to have this spy box that listens to you more than your damn phone does. And we all know our phones already listen to us. But pretty much I don't want to... It's trying to push this everyone needs Big Brother's spy box in your house, and saying that you can't live without it. It's like, I live just fine without an Alexa. And I have many reasons not to get one. But I did find the one about the Mars water a little entertaining, and I thought the Cranston in the Shining commercial for Mountain Dew was hilarious.
I haven't watched that one, and oh, by the way, for our listeners, which team are you supporting? Personally, I don't give a shit about either of them, because I came from an area that was very close to Wisconsin, so I'm a big fan of the Packers myself. Boo to Detroit, they don't do good anyways. But that, and I guess I'm just glad this year that Tom Brady and the Patriots aren't in it, because he's very overrated at this point. So I guess I'm happy about that, but between the two, I'm not sure. It looks like Kansas is going to take it, but it's hard to say.
I really don't care. Personally, I hate football. I think it's mono.
As we talk about football.
Hey, it's clickbait. Like most of our titles. Yes, people, we use clickbait. We are unashamedly using clickbait. Welcome to the internet. At least we admit what we do.
I didn't watch the Tide one. What was that one about?
Oh, it wasn't on yet, but it was like that one guy who's in that, you know, that meme where the guy's got all the ribbons and he's like, "This is the plan" or whatnot. And he looks
Yeah.
kind of crazy. Well, it's got that guy, and you probably don't know who this is, but it's got that guy, and I think it's supposed to be his wife, or maybe it is his wife, or whoever. But this gal, and they're talking about dirty laundry, and the gal is actually, if I'm recognizing it right, she's the crazy gal from the 12 Monkeys sci-fi series based on the Bruce Willis movie. So, but these two are going through laundry,
Hmm.
saying, yeah, this and that. And a lot of the teasers weren't that interesting. But it's like, you know what? I decided to go back in time on YouTube and look up some old Super Bowl commercials. And like the rest of commercials, I've noticed that the new ones, except for maybe one or two, are incessantly lazy and seem just like every other commercial on TV. Like except, oh, it's about the Super Bowl now. Oh, but I did like they had this one for the Bud Light seltzer water, a seltzer that they came out with. That the guy is like that movie Meet Dave, where he's controlled by little people. It's like, okay, that one's interesting, but I only saw like two in that entire list of funny ones that I actually thought was really, really good. Where it used to be when I was growing up, you'd watch it for the commercials, and every commercial was like, oh, there's some Oscars for commercials, but now it seems like people are they're paying millions of dollars for this spot, these advertising companies, and they're putting no effort into actually creating the ad. Like when I was a kid, you know, Campbell's in your cup, it always had that kid who was melting, you know, the snowman melted into the little kid while he was eating Campbell's soup and all that stuff. And it's just like commercials used to actually be good. You didn't really want to skip commercials because, you know, they were actually good. Now even the commercials for kids are like the old adult commercials. Buy this now for this much money.
I feel like commercials nowadays are so, because as young people we do, you know, when it comes to buying shit, I don't speak for everyone, but I will say I do think that we take up a decent amount of the market for items. I do think that they're trying to keep with the trends. The one commercial that was with Lil Nas, I was like, well, that dude's not even like 20, and they put him in a Super Bowl commercial. And they used his song that was like trending for God knows how long. Well, he was just in it because that's a popular song, and he's kind of become a meme at this point. Not because, you know, he's a good actor or anything.
Oh, no, I'm not saying the age of the actors or whatnot. What I'm saying is they're dumbing down the commercials in general, not just in the Super Bowl. Like,
oh, yes.
And it's like, you know what? Commercials used to actually be decent. Now they're more cliched than a 60s or 50s family sitcom. You know, they're like more cliched than, I don't know, Leave It to Beaver or Happy Days. You know, it's a sanitized, not really all that good. And it's surprising because a lot of the trailers coming out of Hollywood for these new movies, and a lot of the new movies are actually good. It's like, what? Can you not hire some of these people in your marketing department? Because it seems like marketers are getting dumber. Like, this shit does not make me want to buy your product.
I don't know. The hummus one I kind of liked for some reason. Because I think what they did right was not only do they have people that you recognize. Well, at least I recognize them, but I do follow trends pretty frequently. But they did actually make a point to show off not just one variation of their product, but multiple products, and they did do good placement for it, which is the whole point of it.
And they did it as a TikTok, which meant it was, you know, double advertising for the hummus and for TikTok at the same time. You know,
right.
So, you know, I get it was a decent idea. I thought the whole thing was rather short and lazy, but I understand the idea. But then we have that one where they got that song, the Pepsi commercial. She's like, we're turning everything black, everything black. It's like, why do we need to bring color into this? And you realize that they were turning this Pepsi Zero Sugar thing into a statement about fighting racism and how black people are better than everybody else or something like that.
I don't really think that from a PR stance it's the greatest to bring race, religion, politics when it comes to commercials. Because the thing is, when you take that stance, you're making it so that your product doesn't look like it's universal, and something as medial as, products should be hypothetically want to be bought from everyone.
Oh
And
yeah.
I, don't think it's the best move
Oh yeah, and then you had
in
the
the long run.
Olay people who were saying these women going up here into space. It was all about women going into space. It's like we gotta make sure everything's woman, everything's female, no male anything except whatever you want to say about the gender pay gap. We can actually probably do a whole show on the myths surrounding that. But the same thing is more women stay at home than men do. So men can have more buying power than women, but we're going to completely go with bringing the politics into our advertising, advertise towards a spot that supposedly doesn't have as much money to throw around. It's like, wow, let's completely alienate a ton of our market space like Gillette did with their anti-man commercial when Gillette was the razor for men.
Right.
Shit, I was just thinking about another commercial that I saw at one point. That's probably one I was thinking of. But yeah, you don't want to bring the politics into it really so much, because you need to be, you try and get market share, get people to buy your stuff. You want everyone to buy it. And trying to bring all that race and everything into it, it's race politics into your marketing. Don't.
Right. I mean, it's already hard enough to be a successful business and to sell a lot of stuff. You don't need to make it worse by, alienating, part of the market.
Yeah. Oh, but on the simplistic, I just remember what I was going to say. On the simplistic side of Super Bowl ads, do you remember a few years ago when that atheist ad was on Super Bowl?
No, I do remember. I don't know if it was last year or the year before. There was one that got a lot of attention. It was with Kendall Jenner and Pepsi, I believe. And people were saying how that was, I believe it was about anti-police something or another. But it got a lot of attention. I know that.
Yeah, no. But what I'm saying is there was this, and actually I can probably get away with this real quick. I will, I'll just play the audio from it. But it is a very, it's about a minute long. It's a very, simple commercial. And it's got just these people going around, these normal people doing everyday things. And if you guys listen to it, it's kind of simplistic, but it's actually pretty excellent, So
okay.
I'll just play the audio.
To the curious, the inquisitive, the seekers of knowledge, to the ones who just want to know about life, about the universe, about yourself. Not cute questions, big questions, ones that matter. To the rebels, the artists, the free thinkers, and the innovators, who care less about labels and more about truth, who believe nonconformity is more than a bumper sticker, that knowledge is more than words on a page. You're young, you're old, you're powerful beyond measure, and the fuel of that power is not magic or mysticism, but knowledge. The things you see, the things you feel, the things you know to be true. Sure, some will doubt you. Let them. Dare to think for yourself, to look for yourself, to make up your own mind. Because in the eternal debate for answers, the one thing that's true is the power of logic.
And it ends with just saying, we go one God further, atheism. And it's not really an ad to tell everyone to become an atheist. It's more of a build awareness ad. And the visuals are actually, I wish I could have downloaded it before the show and maybe put it up here on the stream here. Were you able to hear that, Laura?
No, I didn't hear any.
Okay. Well, I'll try to remember to send you the link later. But essentially, to our listeners who were able to hear it, because unfortunately my stereo mix doesn't translate through Facebook Messenger. We really need to find a better way to do this. Eventually, we will eventually. But anyways, it has excellent audio, excellent narrations, and it's got very great visuals, and it's very simplistic, but it gets the point across, but it's still well put together. And you can tell it was still thought out, despite the simplicity. Where now we're having them pay all this money for the Alexa commercial, and it's just Ellen DeGeneres and her girlfriend going around asking, oh, what did people do before Alexa? And then you had Little Caesar say, greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm reminded of the George Carlin bit. What is this with everything, the greatest thing since sliced bread? You got a piece of bread, you got a knife, slice the fucking bread. It's like, sliced bread is not that complicated. I mean, it's nice that it's pre-sliced, but it's not that hard to slice yourself.
Right.
Not exactly the biggest thing, especially if you guys didn't know. Actually, pre-sliced bread, in order to prevent the bread from getting destroyed too much, they actually use high-pressure water to slice the bread. In some cases.
I didn't know that.
Yep. It's actually quite interesting. High-pressure water is actually one of the most powerful, cleanest ways to cut things on the planet. Other times, I believe they use, like, wire cut or something like that. Like a very sharp wire. But I don't believe they actually use blades in many. I mean, some might, but I do believe that a lot of them use, like, either wire or high-pressure water streams. It's actually quite interesting. But yeah, no. Commercials have just gotten lazy. In general.
Yeah, I think what was interesting about the one commercial with the hummus was like they said "Okay, Boomer" as like a play on the old person's like actual name. His name is actually Boomer, but also as a slight dig to older people, which makes no sense to me, as I would assume older people also enjoy hummus.
Oh yeah.
Besides the idea of, that phrase being trendy, I mean.
Uh-huh. Oh, and just because this is also trending and YouTube's algorithm after this show gets archived will pick up on this word, coronavirus.
Yes, coronavirus. Ugh.
The thing that is essentially just the common cold, or maybe a mild case of the flu. Take care of yourself and be in a country where you can deal with the repercussions of complications. Which, coronavirus actually doesn't kill you. It's if you get pneumonia with it, just like the flu. You might get pneumonia with the flu, and it's the pneumonia that kills you.
I have so many people freaking out about coronavirus. They're, like, wearing masks to airports and stuff like that.
We have 5 confirmed cases in the United States.
I heard it already hit Michigan.
Oh my. You want to know something? My grandmother had it last year. She's still alive.
What'd she do for it? Like, is there, like, an actual cure?
It's a virus. Your body fights it off. As long as you deal with the symptoms and prevent any complications, you'll live. Like with any virus.
I wonder why the media is making it so,
ratings. You have to think ratings.
Like, they make it sound like we have basically the plague on our hands.
Of course they do, and then you have the and because of that, and because the people at the Pentagon and everything are idiots, now the military is preparing to house millions in pandemic scare. You know what? I'm a millennial. I'm technically a millennial, and I lived through H1N1, Ebola, and West Nile, and the SARS scare too. This one does not make me any more scared. I was a little more scared of the, bleed out your eyes hemorrhagic fever known as Ebola than a slightly worse common cold.
What was the one with the pigs that we
That's swine
lived through?
flu,
I was actually kind
H1N1.
of scared for that. Yeah.
You know what the difference was with that one? It was straight in the flu that came from pigs. If you got it, you got a red rash on top of having the flu. That was about it. Wasn't
Hmm.
that bad. If you got a decent, unless you're immunocompromised, very, very old, or very, very young, you will most likely survive. Out of the it said there's about a 20% complication rate, so about the same as any other disease. Except if you go by the current statistics of dead people at last I checked, it's a 0.5% fatalities. That means you have a 99.5% chance of not dying. I think you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than dying from this virus.
How
So,
many cases of people dead is there for right now for the coronavirus? None?
I think 40 out of 8,000 or something like that.
Okay.
So out of 8,000, there were 40 that died, and all those deaths were in China. No Western country infected has had a single death. If you look at it, it's because China is so rural and has such poor health systems. It's got people working in those crappy factories, breathing in all that crap from their industrial crap. You know, they're overpopulated. But think of
Vastly
this, vastly
overpopulated.
overpopulated. But think of this, only a few, maybe 10,000 cases in a country of 1 billion people. If you had 1 million people, 10,000, that's 1%. So you have a 99% chance of not even getting infected at 1 million. We're talking about 1 billion. That's 100 times that. No, that's 1,000 times that. So you have 1,000th of 1% chance of actually catching it in China.
Which isn't really that much, comparatively, I mean.
Exactly. So it's not as bad as. Now, if this were a true pandemic 3 weeks in, what we would have going is there would be millions infected in China. We'd have hundreds of thousands infected in the US and all that stuff. All this is the media has nothing better to report on right now because
The primaries haven't started yet, so that's
the
why.
primaries haven't started yet. The president's impeachment is about to go into acquittal, which they don't want to report on because they really wanted to impeach because the media is controlled by Democrats and stuff. I mean, they're still reporting on it, but since they're going to lose, they aren't really going to be covering it that much. Um, the whole potential war with Iran has completely died down. The only potential war with Iran is between Europe and Iran now because of that Ukrainian airliner. And now we have this thing with the coronavirus, which isn't that bad, but hey, it's something novel. It's something new. Let's scare everybody and get our ratings up. Because nobody's watching the news. Because the world right now is actually kind of boring. It's more
I
just the
mean,
same old shit.
I think the world definitely is boring when like the top news is two media people in like a boxing match.
Yeah, there's no news, so we're going to prop up a mild, benign virus to mean the death of everybody. Because remember, people do actually die of the common cold.
Right.
It's extremely rare, just like coronavirus, but it happens. But you probably won't. That's why people say nobody dies of the common cold. At this point, you could still say nobody dies of coronavirus. Even though people do, it's not enough to be statistically significant. So you have not just a majority, a vast majority of your chances being on living. Now, if Ebola started going everywhere, which now we found out that the blood from people who survive it can be used to make a cure for that particular strain. So one survivor actually helped cure everybody else who had it here in the US, and that's how we got rid of it.
I
I'm
didn't know that. I mean, that makes sense.
I'm more worried about the measles coming back and polio coming back from everyone skipping the vaccines, but herd immunity. I understand science, and I try not to allow these scare tactics and ooh, that's what's in it. You guys do not want to know what we used to use for medicine, okay? Believe me, the stuff in some of these vaccines now is nowhere near as gross. Not that the vaccines are as good for you. If you have the ability to build yourself up a natural immunity, it's much better than a vaccine. I had both flus, the influenza and the stomach flu, at the same time when I was 11. I'm going to be 27 on the 19th. I haven't had the flu since, despite being exposed.
I get sick a couple times a year. I'm not sure if it's a cold or if it's a flu per se.
I get a sinus infection twice a year.
But yeah, I think that when the media does its scare tactics, it makes it so that everyone's like, well, shit, I'm gonna die and no one get near me and blah, blah, blah. And it just is very counterproductive.
Or like when the stock market looked like it was going to crash again last year. And it was just a small dip. The people talking about it, the thing is, if you over-report on something bad about to happen, you make it happen. Because a lot of our society is held together by confidence that everything's going to work out. If you think everything's going to go to shit, then everyone's going to panic, and that's going to make everything go to shit.
Right.
That's kind of how it goes. In a pandemic situation, the panic is going to do more damage than the virus. In every show, more damage is done by the people panicking than the actual virus. And more people then die of exposure, lack of clean water, and the crumbling of civilization than anything. They said like 95% of the people could be healthy, but 5% being gone and dying would be enough to overwhelm all at once, be enough to overwhelm our entire healthcare system and cause mass panic and shut down of vital resources because there not enough nuclear physicists are showing up for the nuclear plants. Not enough plumbers and guys are showing up at the hydroelectric plants and all that, and then power starts going out because 5 to 10% of the population got sick.
Oh, wow.
On top of panic. And really, I'm more worried about a pandemic spreading through the service industry than anything else. Because you remember, when you work in restaurants, you don't stay home when you're sick, even though the health department tells you to, because you might lose your job.
Right.
And you need that money. So unless you got like 103-degree fever and in the hospital, you're at work.
I think that brings up, like, when it comes to an interesting point of workplaces. I actually was working recently, and one of my coworkers, we had to do a last-minute funeral. Obviously, those things aren't planned. Well, the person who died was a retired pastor, and the person I was working with was like, oh, I'm so shocked that, like, there's barely anyone here. Like, what the heck? Like, people should be, like, finding a way to get out of whatever they were doing and make it to this funeral. Mind you, it was on a Saturday at, like, 10 a.m., and maybe it's because she's older that she, like, was fighting me against it, but I told her, I'm sorry, but, you know, some people have things to do, some people can't get out of work. If it's not immediate family, a lot of workplaces don't give a shit.
Yep, they don't.
And it just, she was so adamant to be like, well, you know, you don't know, this person was, like, a pastor, and, like, you know, people who really cared would have showed up and gotten out of, like, whatever thing that they were in. And I'm like, that's just not how life works. Like, you can't get out of almost anything these days, especially when it comes to work.
Oh, yeah. And there's one other thing I do want to say, since we're talking about work and the difference between different levels of people. One of the ads that I saw that was coming up was a Bloomberg ad. Nice thing about the Super Bowl and them being political, it opens up all sorts of topics for us to talk about.
I haven't seen the TurboTax / Inio ad, but I was going to say that's very good placement for timing that they did that ad.
Oh yeah. You need to do your taxes, come use us. I use TurboTax every year. It's cheaper than H&R Block, and I can do it the minute I can do it whenever I have time to do it. I don't need to go sit down with somebody and have somebody else just go straight into, share with this guy all my information. I securely just put it in, have a CPA look at it if I desire and whatnot for a little extra money. And hey, it cost me $150, but they take it out of my refund, so I'm good.
Right. I did think that they invested their money smartly by doing a Super Bowl ad.
Oh yeah, especially in tax season, beginning of tax season. That was an excellent one. But anyways, Bloomberg was doing this Moms for Action, who are an anti-gun lobby, who want to ban firearms. Mind you, some of these moms are definitely inner city African American mothers who talk about their kid. I'm like, their kid, one, keep their kid safe. I'm like, and I hate to say it like this, but I'm like, bitch, why don't you start talking about gang violence in the inner cities and how these people need to stop shooting each other over who sold pot on whose corner? Maybe then, because guess what? A lot of the gun violence in this country is that. Using illegally acquired firearms. It's like, and then they say how cheap firearms are. I'm like, well, today I went down to my local gun shop because I had an incident the other week where I had road rage happen behind me. And where I work, some stuff has happened out near there. So I'm like, okay, I want to buy a firearm. Just something to keep in my car or whatnot. Just in case someone tries to, carjack me or something.
Right.
Self-defense. And it's like, you're looking, and the cheapest you're going to find a gun is $300, $400, $500 for the firearm. I mean, ammo is cheap as shit. But a gun costs damn near as much as a cheap laptop. And it's like, most people, if you only make $30,000 a year.
Which a lot of people make around that or less, interestingly enough.
Actually, most people make around that or less. The average is higher because of how much more the higher echelons of society make. It throws off the averages, because you average everything up together and divide it equally, and that gives you an average. So it comes out to 50,000, but on average, in the colloquial sense, people make more like 30 to 32. For someone who makes 30 to 32 grand a year, a $300 or $400 purchase of a firearm, you're purchasing one. And all these kids who do all these things and all these stunts, you notice they all come from white collar or upper middle class families who have this kind of money.
Right, you're not seeing, and I will say statistically, people do believe that the African American group is the ones carrying the guns, where that stereotype
statistically, that is only in the inner cities, and all those firearms and guns being carried are being carried illegally and have been illegally acquired, have their serial numbers filed off, or full auto AKs brought over the border and all that and used in gang violence. Most of the time.
So the actual weapons themselves have been stolen.
Stolen, or not even stolen. Bought on the black market. Most guns used in these mass shootings of schools and stuff have been stolen from family members, mostly kids stealing their parents' weapons, or they were bought illegally on the black market, cheaper than you're going to get them at the gun store. Where, let's see here, I think I heard one guy say he could go down to the bad part of town when he was in a gang and for $500 get a fully automatic AK-47. Where for me to get a semi-auto civilian version at the gun store, it's going to cost me about $2,000. So it's cheap for me to get the military-grade hardware on the black market than to legally acquire it. And they want to add more laws to prevent you from being able to own it, thinking that's going to stop anybody. I mean, seriously, Chicago has one of the highest gun crime rates in the country, and they have a complete ban on firearms, pretty much. Same with New York. The only people who have guns are criminals and police. And it hasn't stopped the violence one bit. What it is, it's about control. If the law-abiding citizens don't have a way to fight back, then you can push stuff through. Like in Michigan, they're trying to push out the term limits with a lawsuit. Which, if it's in your state's constitution, I don't know how a lawsuit's going to get rid of term limits.
I don't know either on that.
doesn't constitutional mean it's the law and it's constitutionally the law? I mean, you can't go above the Constitution. I mean, you might be able to argue it on a federal level, but the federal government really doesn't have much say when it comes to administrative abilities inside of a state. That becomes a states' rights issue, too. So that goes to a whole new level of stuff. I mean, a state can't do something that violates the federal constitution, but there's nothing in the federal constitution saying you have to have no term limits, and you could even use the term limits of the president as precedent for setting term limits for other offices. So if they're going to do this lawsuit, it could turn into, well, then you'd have to invalidate the amendment that put a limit on the United States president's term limit of 2 terms. So, it's one of those things. I don't even know how they'd even win such a lawsuit to get rid of term limits in Michigan. But they're politicians, so they're automatically corrupt. So, they probably will pay somebody off or something.
Probably.
And I still wish I knew why my phone is asking me to answer your audio messenger, even though I answered it on my computer.
Do you have a viewer or no?
Huh?
Do you have a viewer?
Have a what?
A viewer.
Oh, the view is probably my preview.
Okay.
But, I mean, hopefully, once this stuff goes to SoundCloud, we get a site and stuff, we'll be able to, take care of some stuff. Big problem is, I am horrible at tagging shit and everything else, and actually, if you want, I'll get you so you can, start posting some, once we get the site up and running, if you want to ever write something, some idea of something on there as a blog or whatnot. It'll probably either be a WordPress or Squarespace with a blog for either one of us to put up stuff. Haven't decided.
Okay. I'm actually surprised, there are viewers who will maybe eventually listen to this. Me and Tony, for how we usually do our podcast, don't really research much, and we're very thinking up ideas for what we're going to talk about, very last minute. We did actually attempt to do semi-research this week.
Attempt.
Yes, attempt.
Attempt is the optimal word. Because while Laura follows a lot of trends, I live under a rock.
He does.
So I really have no clue what's going on because it's boring.
He was not aware of the KSI, the Give versus Logan Paul fight, which was basically a preliminary boxing fight to see if he was going to go after KSI, which he won. It was people are saying it was a TKO, which I had to look up that information. Basically, it means if the referee thinks that the other person is in danger of being basically completely knocked out to unconsciousness, they make that call to stop the match early. That's the summary of what happened. Give, the person he was up against, had gone to the ground like 2 or 3 times by off-balance reasons, so that is why he lost in the first round. So I'm just really excited to see Jake Paul hopefully get his ass beat by KSI.
Granted, though I don't normally follow things, I may look more into this Hansen versus Onision lawsuit.
I've heard so much on this drama, and honestly, I thought that he just kind of became irrelevant, but I guess he's somehow back in the news.
Why are you so hollow echoey? You sound like you have your mouth right against the microphone.
I don't know.
Well, at least to me.
It's something, so maybe you can some of that.
Maybe it's because I declined that. I finally got that decline to go off my phone. Maybe I messed up the call. Yes, people, we use Facebook Messenger to record this.
Using super high-tech stuff.
super high tech. You can hear our excellent production value.
Which is why, as an audience, if you're listening, you should donate to our Patreon so we can look on that.
Yeah, and actually, I'm gonna just a second, Laura. I'm gonna call you back to try to fix this audio issue real quick.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
like she said, you should donate to our Patreon so that you can help us remedy our horrible production values. Because there are some much better ways to record these, but they all cost money.
Yes.
We don't have money.
Yes.
We have this podcast is held together by what I like to call the holy four things: duct tape, bubble gum, chicken wire, and the prayers of small children.
Neither of us have a lot of money to begin with.
I didn't put any money into this beyond my mic, which I didn't just get for this.
No, in general.
Huh?
In general, neither of us have a lot of money.
Oh no, neither of us have a lot of money. Hence why I'm having to use my tax refund to get our website and SoundCloud going.
Tax season. I have to wait a whole 20 days to get mine.
Well, mine's supposed to be here by Wednesday. But knowing when I get those, usually I'll probably end up having it tomorrow or Tuesday.
That'll be good.
But I checked the IRS Go app last night, and it's yesterday, and it said that it had been approved, and it would be in my bank account by February 5th. So
When did you do your taxes? That's really fast.
22nd?
Okay, I just got mine done a couple days ago, so I'm hoping it doesn't take the full 20 days.
Then after I filed, I got a tax thing from the bank about interest earned. Good thing it was only like $16.50, so we all know the IRS is not going to expend resources on that. And if they do, I just pay them whatever I owe them on that or whatever that shit is. But they aren't going to spend all that. It's going to cost them more than they would get out of me to get the taxes off that interest. So, you know, it's the government. They have to justify everything they spend. They aren't going to be able to justify to the boss, hey, we found this guy. He forgot to report $16. Yeah, that ain't going to happen.
Nope.
And if they do, I'm honest about an honest mistake. Whoops, here you go, and it goes away. As long as you don't try to hide it and you you own up to it as soon as they catch you, you'll usually get off pretty easy. As long as you own up to it and fix it right away. Oh, because they want to get their money. They don't want to have to throw you in jail and do these lawsuits and everything else, because that costs them more money.
Mm-hmm.
It's like It's like debt collectors. You owe $1,200 in medical debt. You're never going to get sued for it, because it will cost them more than that in the lawyer's fees to sue you. They'll just keep reselling the debt for pennies on the dollar, and it'll just go from one debt collector to the next. Which is, why you don't get sued for penny stuff and all that stuff. Now, if you're like 10 grand in debt, then we're talking about lawsuits over recovering that debt. But small little debts of $1,000 to $2,000, those usually just get put into the cycle of going from one debt collector to the next ad infinitum, and you can ignore them forever. Fortunately. But that's only on small debts. But you still should pay your debts. Don't let yourself get into debt.
Yes, please do not let yourself get into debt.
I speak from experience, it's a pain in the ass. But yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to get this going. I'm still trying to decide if I want to do have us use Squarespace or WordPress. WordPress is cheaper. But since we have no views and I'm going to run out of stuff to talk about, I think that could be the end of the episode. Yeah, it's ending a little bit early, but
How long are we at?
50 minutes.
That's close enough to the time, anyways, isn't it?
Yeah, and we don't have any viewers. Anyways, we'll see you guys next time. And remember, if you guys view this later, like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon, and soon you will be able to go to our site as soon as I have it up, and I will give you guys the name after it comes up because overtimepodcast.com was taken because other people who are talking about overtime in sports also have a podcast of the same name. Unfortunately. So, see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Bye!